YouTube. It's been a minute. So I know it's been a few months since I've done a last review, and that's when I did the Super Light 2, and I deemed it the king of mice. But I think things have changed since then. We've had a really good high-profile mice release since then. We've got the Tiger ULX, got the Cheetah, got the Lion. Well, the Cheetah's shipping, I guess, although a lot of people haven't gotten it. We've got the Ninjutso Sora V2, which the review is about today. And obviously we've got the Beast X. But I'm going to start off with this thing. I got this about, I want to say, maybe a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. And I've been using it daily since then, more or less, whether that's office, gaming, just day-to-day use. And so far, I got to say, I'm really impressed with the build quality of this thing. It's made out of polycarbonate. Obviously, no holes in the shell. Weighs about roughly 39 grams. And that's with the skates on. Maybe actually, I think it's about 40 with the skates on. I did an unboxing video where you can see the weight of it. I'm not going to really bother with the scales in this video. If you're actually curious about that, go check out the live unboxing video for this. And I cover that and a whole bunch of other things in there that I probably shouldn't have with regards to the Beast X and the Tiger. But those are going to have their own individual reviews coming pretty soon here. Okay, so let's just get started on this. First of all, features and overview. This thing has got a Nordic 5840 MCU, just like all other high-end mice. It's got a Pixar 3395 sensor. I believe it used the D2FP FN2 Omron optical switches. It's got a TTC 9mm encoder. I think the Sprime PM1 has a 12mm one, if I recall correctly. This thing is about 2mm shorter than the Sora V1, and they did a little bit of changes to the hump as well. They call the buttons here, if you look at carefully, there's like a little groove. Call these comfort grooves, I guess, and it's supposed to help with your finger placement when you're holding it. It's nice. I mean, I can't say it makes a big deal to me because I'm a fingertip claw user. So for me, I mean, I never take my fingers that far out anyway, but if you do, then I guess it'd be nice. But typically when I game, it's going to be like this. Now, as far as the build quality goes, I talked about this in an unboxing video. This thing is built like a tank. I mean, I'm squeezing the shit out of this and nothing, there's no flex, there's no creaks. It's really well built. As far as the button quality goes, you can try to listen. I'm going to bring it up here and you can see the click. First of all, these are Omrons, like I mentioned. Let me just go ahead and click these first. Here's the side buttons. So the buttons feel excellent. You can spam them. They've got really good feedback. Very little post travel on these buttons, and very little. I don't even think there's any pre travel that I can really notice. So this is a really well built mouse. The side buttons are good as well. There's no pre travel that I can think of. Very little post. However, I did notice something with this rear button. If you hit it from the top side, like the very top end up here, which you probably wouldn't do normally, but if you do, you're going to get a little bit of grind. But that's honestly, it's not something you'll notice day to day. I only picked it up because I've got big thumbs and I was kind of hitting it on the side like this, and I noticed a little bit of grinding. But again, you're not going to really notice this during day to day use. As far as the coating goes, it's a really nice matte coating. The only thing is that it's an oil magnet from your fingerprints. Watch, I'm going to rub my fingers on here real quick. Look at this. So not a huge deal. Just the thing is that after every use, it's probably a good idea to wipe it down. You don't want those oils just sticking on the surface. You're eventually going to get color wear off and whatnot. But every time I'm done using it, I just wipe it off and it stays clean and goes back to the way it looks out of the box. Now, as far as the wheel goes, like I mentioned, it's a TTC 9mm. It's got a really nice rubber feeling to it. The steps feel good. The clicks are good. I personally like this better than Finalmouse's or Beast X's implementation. I think it feels a lot better. It kind of reminds me of the Lamzu. I know it's very similar to the Sprime, except I think the Sprime is supposed to have a 12mm, so it'll be a little bit different. As far as gaming goes, I play Warzone mainly. That's my main game whenever I do have time to game. And I gotta say, the difference between this, the Beast X, the Finalmouse, and the Super, well, not the Super Light, but those three mice It's very similar. You can switch between them because they all use the same hardware. They all have 3395. They all have, you know, the Nordic MCU. Obviously, their firmwares are going to be different, so performance is going to be different there. And this thing is only limited to 1000 hertz. So that's another thing I'm going to kind of segue into right now. This is the receiver. Now, if you guys notice, it's a pretty large receiver. I like the way it looks. I mean, it's transparent and all that, but this is only 1K. And, you know, the marketing for this thing has promised us 8K. That's yet to materialize. And I think Sprime PM1, which I think is probably the same company, if we're being honest here, they've had the same promise and they haven't delivered. Hopefully they do. I didn't get this mice for free, so everything I say is unbiased. I buy my own shit. I don't get free stuff sent to me. Not that I even need to. But the point is, they're making promises. They haven't delivered. There's no word from them. I'm in their Discord. Plenty of other people are in there too, saying, hey man, when are you going to give us our 8K? When are you going to give us our 4K? And it's just crickets. There's not a single word from them, not a tweet from them. I think maybe there's like a 1 or 2 tweets where they might have said something, but essentially, yeah, there's very little communication going on, which is disappointing, to be honest. I was hoping they would have said something about an ETA at least. But nonetheless, it is a good mouse. It performs really well in games. The weight is good. It's balanced well as well. So if I hold it up, you're going to notice it. It's not front heavy or back heavy. Let me just give you a quick comparison of what I mean by that. So like if you look at the Beast X, all right, let me just hold it up like this way real quick. It's front heavy. If you notice, it's like kind of tilting. See that? Now this thing right here, it's not going to do that. It just stays in place. It doesn't tilt at all. That's kind of how this thing is. I know it's not part of the review, but yeah. So this thing is front heavy. Just kind of look at the super light tune comparison. Very front heavy. Although I've modified this. I mean, I took out the power play, so that's another reason why. It's got a smaller battery in there, so it stands a reason this will be a lot more front heavier. But out of the box, perfect balance. No complaints at all from me. And it's funny because there's certain people out there that are high profile streamers that everybody knows about, Shroud, that have said avoid Ninjutso because it sounds, I don't know, he made a face and they said it doesn't sound like a good mouse. Come on. But that's one take I can't agree with. This thing, it's a fantastic mouse. You're not going to lose anything by buying this mouse. It's, first of all, it's a good price. You know, what's $115 I think I paid, maybe something like that, if I recall correctly. And the performance is top notch. And speaking of performance, I'm going to, again, segue into that. Sensor performance, if you look on your screen, it's pretty damn good. Wireless sensor performance is very little deviations here and there. And even with, if you look at the frequency versus time plot, that's generally polling stability. There's a little few outliers here and there, but nothing that you would ever notice while you're using the mouse. It's a pretty clean graph. And now even motion latency, which I got around the testing, this thing, I mean, again, it's not the best, but it's not the worst either. I mean, it's 1.2 relative to my control unit, 1.2 milliseconds. The click latency, again, you know, it's not the best click latency, but again, it's nothing that you're going to notice in game. It's, you know, 2.048 milliseconds is what I measured with XLAT. And I do have some pictures of XLAT I'm going to, you know, throw up here just because you got this. It's a new toy I got and I love using it. So I kind of want to share it with everybody. But yeah. So what do I think about this mouse overall? Well, I'd have to give it a 7.5 out of 10. So you're probably wondering why a 7.5 out of 10 after you said so many good things about the mouse? Well, because despite it being such a good, well-built mouse, it's got, you know, a polycarbonate shell. It's 40 grams. It's got good Omron optical switches. The wheel feels good. The side buttons feel good. The tracking is good. The frequency over time plots are good. You know, the latency is not the best, but it's not bad either. So why is 7.5 out of 10? Because of the polling rate. I feel like the polling rate at 1K is holding it back. Now, you may disagree and think, well, most people can't notice the difference between 1K and 4K or 8K. Well, I would say people that this mouse is targeting who happen to be part of the esports segment and they play Valorant, they play CS2, and those games often push 300 plus FPS, and those guys do happen to have monitors that are 240 plus refresh rate or even up to 500 plus. They will notice 4K polling rates. They can feel it, if anything else, and the increased responsiveness, I think, is important, especially if you're playing with money on the line or if you're playing in tournaments or any kind of competitive situation, really. And maybe you have a streaming career, or maybe you're just a highly competitive gamer and you want the best of the best. And I just don't think at 1K this mouse offers that. Now, when Ninjutso gets around to offering a 4K, 8K dongle that can actually pull that off, then I may revise my score and give it maybe an 8.5. But at the same time, I do want to explain why I'm giving it even an 8.5 at best, because the shape, at least to me, I'm a fingertip claw user, so it doesn't bother me as much. But if you're not, and you have smaller hands than I do, for reference, I have large hands. It's a 23 by 13 hand. So if you've been looking for a reviewer that has big hands, that would be me. I know a lot of people out there have small hands, so they judge mice differently. I can use pretty much almost any mouse, fingertip or clawed, and it's not a problem. So light mice do lend themselves better if you're a fingertip claw player than a heavier mouse would. And in this situation, this, or, you know, say, for example, the Beast X, they weigh the same. They feel good, but the Beast X feels better compared to this. Why? Because if you look at the sides of it, they're both tapered, right? But the way this is tapered better, the way the hump comes up, the way the shape slopes downward, it feels better, so you're able to handle it better when you're moving your hand, especially if you're doing fingertip control like this. Let's say you got to rapidly pull down if you're firing a gun, versus this thing is because it's thicker on the side, especially towards the hump. You get less control with it as a fingertip or claw user than you would the Beast X. Even though the Beast X, the problem is, like I mentioned before, and I'll talk about it more in the review, people with big hands like me, they hit the side buttons. Sora solves that problem by having thinner buttons, which I especially like. But again, the shape, it's not for me. And because of that fact, I can't give it a higher score than that. And also the fact that the pulling rate is just 1K. I feel like it's being held by that. Even despite, you know, all the other positives about this mouse. It's a great mouse. I do recommend it. So let's just be clear about that. It's a highly recommended mouse. It's one of the best. Is it the best for me? No. Is it going to be my daily driver? No. But it may be for you though, and especially if you have smaller hands and you don't mind having a grip that's a little bit different than mine. So, for example, if you have a grip kind of like this, where your fingers kind of go all the way forward, and you can take advantage of the comfort grooves, and you have a smaller hand, maybe the mouse for you. But yeah, great mouse. Good job, Ninjutso. I look forward to the 4K pulling a 4K or an 8K dongle coming out in the future. But until then, it's a 7.5 out of 10. Okay, guys. Well, next up is going to be the Beast X review. I know it's been a minute, but I've been super busy, and I do want to talk about this mouse, and I want to talk about what's going on at WLMouse and the future of a Beast X and what's going on, because there's some developing insights going on with this company and mouse that I think a lot of people are going to be excited for, or they may not. And also, after the Beast X review, I will be, of course, talking about the Tiger. The Finalmouse Tiger. It's a great mouse, and I can't wait to talk about it. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you next time. Take care.